Yes, yes, yes. Welcome, welcome. Hey, this is a new segment that I have. It's called "It's Time for a Change." I have some guests in my studio today, and I listen. These are two gentlemen that I think highly of, especially when it comes to the political arena here, and also local politics, which is our topic today. So, Frank Wagner, would you like to just introduce yourself on top of what I've done here?
Sure. Larry, it's great to be here, obviously. When it comes to politics, I really enjoy talking about politics because that's what I've been doing for the last 50 years, probably.
Yes.
Since I was 16 years old, involved in politics. So local politics, grassroots is really important to any and every community because people have to be engaged. People have to get involved. People have to vote. The trend over the last few years are less and less people are coming out to vote, and that's detrimental to democracy. People have to take a stand. They have to support their local government because local government is what it's all about. That's the most hands-on government people have access to. Your councilman, your council president, your mayor. These are all neighbors. These are people within your community that when you have a problem, you pick up the phone, you can call the mayor. Pick up the phone, you can call your council president or your councilman. You can't pick up the phone and call your senator or your congressman or the president of the United States or the governor. Local government is critical to every citizen within a community.
So correct. And you're very well thought of in your community, which is next. I mean, they come out for you. I've seen it.
Thank you.
Okay, but we also have another gentleman, and this gentleman here, well, I'll let him introduce himself. His name is Ethan. Okay, but Ethan, tell him who you are.
Yeah, I'm Ethan Karana. I run the Better Future for Cuyahoga campaign, and then also I'm separately Lawrence Lane's campaign manager for Maple Heights City Council president. And I've also been involved in politics for a number of years. I worked on Bibb's campaign, Renane's campaign for county executive and mayor of Cleveland, Ohio. So I also agree that I think that local politics is really important for folks to get involved with. And a lot of people have the opinion that they spend these tax dollars and it goes to nothing or it goes to, bureaucrats' pockets, which is not true. At least majority of the time, it's not true. And, we I think have to do a better job of thinking about politics on the local level so that people can understand, where their tax dollars are going to and can develop opinions and articulate them to their elected officials so that we can get better and more effective governance on top of the governance we have right now.
That's excellent. So what I want to do is this. I want to know, tell them a little bit about what you're doing now, what your goals are as far as, your future, what you think, you think you're going to have a career in politics possibly?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I have worked in Shaker politics for a while, so I'm very passionate about Shaker, also very passionate about Maple now as well. I'm fully committed to Cleveland. I'd rather die than live in any other city in the world. This is the best city in the globe, and I want to continue to make it an even better city. And so I definitely will be in the game for a while trying to pass policy to make the city even better than it already is.
Cleveland and Cuyahoga County has got to be the best location in the nation. Yeah. You've got strong leadership with Mayor Bibb in Cleveland. Yeah. And of course, our county executive, Chris Ronayne, is outstanding what he's been able to accomplish with the county.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah. And I just think honestly on a living level, you're not spending $50 to get a 12 pack of beer, and you're not getting stuck in traffic for 3 hours just to drive to the west side like you would in other major cities. So I think Cleveland has all the benefits of a small city with some of the also benefits of a big city and also a rural city, all within a 15-minute drive. So we're a perfect location. I think that there's just things that need to be improved within a city that come from getting people more involved and people understanding what their local politics does and what it can do for them. And I think a great start, as like you said, has been Mayor Bibb has done a fantastic job in the city. And I'm really proud of the work that he's done, and it shows you that when people get involved in local politics, it really makes a difference.
And local politics is really important because, Tip O'Neill said all politics is local, but when you look at your local politics, that's where you, as an individual voter, have an opportunity to make a huge difference in what's going on in your community.
Yeah.
So that's critical. And what makes Cleveland and Cuyahoga County such a great area is its suburbs.
Yeah.
We have all our suburbs and townships around us are very strong and very involved, but people have to start getting even more involved in a lot of the inner city.
Yeah.
So you guys, just to interrupt because I want to get to some specific titles here, topics here. Frank, I got something that I definitely want to ask you, okay? The responsibility of the mayor or manager, what is that role? Would you mind sharing that with us?
It's an administrative position. The mayor is the chief executive of the city, all right? The council has to work with the mayor. They can't be against the mayor because nothing will ever get done. You have to have someone in charge of working together, getting that camaraderie, getting the people that are elected to work together. And that in a community like Maple Heights would be the council president. That's an important position that the council president plays because council has to work with the mayor. They don't work for the mayor, but they all have to be on the same page. If the council disagrees with the mayor, you do it in a way where you have it through discussion. All right, but the mayor is the chief executive officer of the city. And it's through the mayor's vision that the city moves forward, but that vision includes the support of the council because the mayor can't do it alone, the council can't do it alone, everybody's got to do it working together.
So in essence, we are the employees of who?
The citizens of Maple Heights or
Say that again. I want to make sure everybody hear that. Who employs us?
the electors, the city of the community that you represent.
Yeah.
So in Maple Heights, for instance, the mayor, the council president, the city council, their boss is the residents that elect them to office.
So why do you think when a resident comes to the city council and they're complaining, and the people that they elected to be in that seat, they actually argue with them? They actually, here, I'm not going to name this person, but I want to tell you of an incident that I witnessed or heard about him rather. It was a resident that, constantly comes to a city council. And what she does, she complains about different things that affect her day-to-day living. Well, I guess one of the council people did not feel that that was a time to hear what she had to say. So in essence, she looked at the person and she said, why don't you write me a letter? And she continued, this is a council person, she continued looking at her phone and just totally ignoring the person, just blowing off, like she was a pain in the butt. So finally, the resident said, ma'am, I think it's very disrespectful for you to be on your phone telling me that shows me that you're really not interested in it. Is it possible you put down your phone and answer, my question? And she looked at the resident and said, well, F you. If you don't like what I'm doing, vote me out.
Wow, that's a strong message to the world that, hey, I'm not doing the job, get rid of me. But that's the key about local government and people being engaged. You can get rid of council members that aren't doing their job.
How should a council president respond to a situation like that?
Well, I think in a situation like that, the council should have some type of policy in place that you don't have your cell phone with you when you're doing city business. You're not on your cell phone unless it's an emergency or you need it to do the city's business. Your focus is on the city business. If you're in a council meeting, that's where your focus is.
Yeah, and I always see this too. Like, I think you see this at the national level too, where there's some sort of annoyance when residents are coming to talk to certain elected officials. I would never say like all elected officials, but you see the clips of Congress people walking through the hallways of Congress, and they have voters walking up to them asking them questions, and they're acting like they're above this. And then you see it at the city council. We've seen it a bunch in Maple Heights, that there's some sort of annoyance at residents coming to talk to elected officials, and that just really like irks me, because that is the job. You get into office to represent the people, to listen, to respect them, and like you said, they're your boss. You are not the boss of them. And I think that that's also what I hope people would come to understand about elected officials, especially at the local level, is that you are the boss of the elected officials, not the other way around, even though it might seem that way, because they have this title or they have this stance. But City Hall in any city should be a place that residents can go with the most minor issues and be heard, and have a plan presented in front of them of, okay, what are the actionable steps moving forward? To go to a city hall with an elected official who's saying, well, if you don't like how the city's going, vote me out. Well, damn, you should get voted out.
Yeah. Hey, let's give them their request. If you want out, we got you. Okay, that's good. But one of the things that I do know is this: it's very important to have a passion for what you do. Okay, Frank, I've known you for a few years even now, and ever since I've known you, you have been passionate about working in government. And I'll tell you what I really love about you. You taking your grandkids. You take everywhere I see. I think that's what made me notice you. If you remember when I first met you, you had your grandson with you, and I have seen you with him every time. Sharp young man, by the way. That's another one we need to look out for. I think he's headed towards government too. Yeah. Those are memories that you don't forget. But Frank, one of the things is this: a well-ran government is what?
It's effective, it represents the people, and it does the will of the people if it's a well-run government. If it's not well-run, it's a waste of money, things aren't getting done, special interests are taken over, and you really, at a local level, that just destroys the community.
What do you think of some of today's politics? Okay, not anybody in particular. We're not talking about an individual, but as a whole, the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, compare it to, let's say, 25, 30 years ago. Do you see any difference?
I think the difference is you have less people being engaged in government. All right, when you look at local offices, you don't see very many people running because they're disengaged. They don't really focus on what's going on. They're self-centered on their life, and that's all they care about, and they don't get involved unless it hits home.
Yeah.
People need to get involved. Local government, today it's difficult because you have so many cuts coming from the federal level, which trickles down through the state to the local government.
Yeah.
And then you have the mayors, the council, trying to figure out how are we going to provide the services to the residents. Simple services like rubbish collection, police, and fire. Those are key issues to every resident. And as far as when a resident has a problem, they should be encouraged to come to City Hall, encouraged to have this discussion with their elected officials. When they're discouraged, people, they'll start saying, they don't care. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
That's what I hear.
And that's people become
disengaged
because of that. Disengaged because they feel nobody cares.
Yeah.
Why should I care? Why should I get involved? Well, that's what people that are trying to destroy government want. They want people to not be engaged, so 2 to 20% of the community actually elects the officials that serve the entire community.
They actually put that into their plan, I see. A lot of times they count on some of those percentages of people not voting because of the very statement that you just made, the disengagement, the people that just don't want to get involved. So you're 100% correct. Now, Ethan, your age. Could you mind telling us how old you are, sir?
I'm 19 years old.
Okay. Do you see a lot of people your age that are actually active in government and doing things in government?
Well, I would say, yes and no. I think that every time you have a new generation, you have folks who are engaged, folks who are not engaged. But I think that what we've seen a lot over the past couple of years is the activation of social media into politics and ingraining social media like podcasting into politics. And I think that it is true when the proper channels are used that my generation is really activated and brought into politics. But when they're not engaged, just like any resident of any age or any demographic, when you're not meeting them where they're at, they're less likely to be engaged. And I see too many times, kids who have no idea that they can call their local office for problems that they might have, whether it's something that, they need assistance with a tree that might have fallen down in their yard, or a lot of people don't know that you can call your police department if you get locked out of your car, so you're not paying for AAA, because that's something that's provided in tax dollars.
Interesting.
Yeah,
that's good. That's good information.
Yeah, a lot of these things people don't know because our elected officials aren't actively reaching out towards these people. And so when I say that, yes, it's true that Cleveland's losing voters, we've lost voter turnout, one of the only major cities to lose voter turnout over the past 20 years. A lot of this is due to we're not properly engaging with people in the way that we should be. When you look at campaigns across the country, they're doing the successful campaigns across the country, they're doing everything they can to engage with residents. Yes, they're on TikTok, but they're also printing out papers for canvassing for residents who don't know how to work an app on their phone. That's what politics is that you should understand your residents, understand the elected people you're representing, and meet them where they're at with the resources that they can use so that they can understand how they can get involved with politics.
Politics has changed from that perspective, where it's now multimedia. It's you have to have old school politics, new school politics, TikTok, Facebook, all this stuff is part of the political realm. And as you say, that's how you draw in the younger people, because they have to know what's going on.
Yeah.
When you have a community or an electorate that don't understand or know what's going on, that's dangerous.
Yeah.
It's a danger to democracy.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, honestly, even further than that, some communication that needs to get out there is how do you actually make a difference within your community? Because, I'm forgetting his name, Obama's speechwriter, John Favreau, is that his name? Yeah. He wrote a really good article in The Atlantic that I just read a couple of months ago that was titled, Democrats Need to Stop Talking to Themselves. And, whether we're talking about Democrats or Republicans, I do think that this is really true that for kids in my generation, a lot of times what they believe is political activism is reposting something on their story. That's not political activism. We need to stop with the rhetoric of, if they're not on our side, then I don't have to engage with them, and get back to what worked for progressive change, for democratic change when it was Obama running, which was knocking on doors and talking to people. That's what makes a difference. If your cousin's not voting, your friend's not voting, ask them, why are you not voting? That's a wrong thing to do. Get them to vote. That's how you change the systems. It's not by these social media posts, poems, art, like that. All that stuff is important, but what's effective is canvassing and political engagement, which is also equally as important and is underrepresented right now.
Well, I got a question. How do we energize the Democratic Party? How do we get more people involved? Where do we start it, Frank? Frank, this is for you.
We start knocking on doors. We start encouraging people to register to vote and explain to them how important that one vote is.
And then we don't do it at just election time, is what you're saying.
We do it 24/7.
That's
You do it every day.
Yeah.
Okay. Our party chairman, David Brock, he's working very hard to
Yeah.
rebuild and energize the party. We see throughout Cuyahoga County, the votes have dropped, and we need to get
Considerably.
voters to come back and vote.
Yeah.
Whether we would love them to vote Democratic, but more importantly, we need
Vote.
them to vote.
Yeah.
That's what's important. When people don't vote, bad things happen in
Yeah.
government.
One of the things that you and I have talked about constantly is getting more attention out here. I think one of the ways is you need to do a consistent podcast. I think we talked about
Yeah,
that.
we talked about that. That's what we're
Yeah.
going to end up doing.
Yeah, so tell me, let's give the viewers just a little hint of what that would detail. Because I know you always are so passionate about what you do. And hopefully we can energize that party to some of the things that this podcast may actually talk about. And some of the guests that you had that I know you're going to be able to bring out. Well, so give us a little brief, you know.
I think it's what we're going to do is going to be a very high energy broadcast that's going to talk about specific issues that affect the average citizen, the average person. We're not going to talk just national politics, but what's going on locally? What's going on in our schools?
Yeah.
What's going on around the corner? What does my neighbor need? What are we missing?
Yeah.
That we need to get people involved in.
That's
So
good.
it's not only going to be a political
It's
broadcast.
going to be a positive.
It's going to be a positive podcast that's going to talk about how we make life better for everyone we serve.
Bringing communities together.
Bring all communities
Yes.
together, embrace each other, and move the quality of life forward and raise the quality of life for people within the community.
Frank, you and I, we do a lot of ice cream socials and different
We do.
And listen, I can't handle it with my stomach, man. It's getting all out there.
But that's how you bring people together.
Exactly.
You gotta have events.
Yes.
You want to draw people that normally don't come out or come to these events, and they come and they have an ice cream social. They hear somebody talking about what's going on in the community, and gets them thinking, well, yeah, that's right. Hey, how do I get involved? 99% of the people, when asked why you don't get involved, they'll tell you because nobody's ever asked me.
So true.
People need to be asked to be involved.
Frank,
They
but
want to be invited.
I noticed they come out for you. And I mean, you have judges, senators. I mean, they come out for Frank Wagner. He fills the place up. You've had what, 2 or 3 at my place over there at Miss O's. I have to get Miss O's.
Miss O's.
Yeah. And I noticed that you always are focused on them having a good time. You want to make sure there's something there to eat, and you always have good information. Why they come out for you, man? They come. Is this because
For
of
those reasons. We give them something to eat. We have a good time, and we provide positive information that's really important.
Yeah.
And once people start seeing that, and they understand that, hey, it's not a waste of my time to go somewhere, because I'm going to either get some information, or I can share a concern I have, because it goes both ways. At our events, people will ask questions, they'll present concerns that they have, and it's a way of addressing them.
Yeah.
So it sounds like it's about relationships.
It's all
That's what
about
I'm hearing.
relationships, service, and engaging people across multiple cultures and levels of education.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So that's going to be called the Wagner Report.
Let's call it the Wagner Report.
That's good. That's good. So I got a question for you, Ethan. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is going to be a curveball, but I just want to see what you say.
Yeah.
What makes a good council president?
A good council president? First of all, both his names start with an L.
I like this guy. Yeah.
But no, so seriously, and I think I can also answer the other question you had of the Democratic Party. How do we re-energize things?
Oh, great.
I think that we need to stop having the rhetoric of talking about ourselves as candidates. I think when you look across the county, the best candidates who are running are always candidates who are running on a platform. What are you going to do for the electorate? When we worked with Justin, how I answer the doors, I would knock and I would say, hey, what is wrong with the city? What do you want to see fixed? And then here's Justin's platform of our plan to make that better. You know, it didn't always work. We didn't always see eye to eye, but at least he had a platform. I think most folks can tell you the terrible things that Donald Trump is doing. Most folks cannot tell you, who are not politically engaged, cannot tell you the Democratic platform for education policy.
That's true.
They can tell you that, you know, Trump is going to shut down the Department of Education, which is terrible, but they can't tell you what the Democratic platform is for education. That's a problem. We can't have more politics of I'm right and he's wrong. That's not good politics for any office, whether it's president or city council president. But Democrats need to do, and what a good city council president would do, is have an agenda that focuses on how am I going to change the city in my years in office, and what is going to change. You know, you can't accomplish everything you're going to say you're going to do because there's always going to be barriers. But what is your agenda? What are you going to actively try and engage? So for our campaign, you know, what we've talked about is we want residents to be able to watch city council meetings on a live stream. Most cities in Cuyahoga County do this, that you, when you get home from working a 9 to 5 or 9 to 6, like most folks do in Cleveland, you don't really want to go to a council meeting and wait 3 hours to speak for 5 minutes. Instead, let's have a live stream where you can go on. You don't have to feel that you're bringing your personal issues in front of a crowd. You don't have to be Dr. King just to talk about your lawn getting fixed. You know what I mean? That to give a speech in front of 45 people who might be at a council meeting, let them talk through a phone and talk to the representatives or talk on their computer through a Zoom call. This is 21st century. That is a great policy platform. You're telling people right now we don't have live stream. By the time my 4 years are done, we will have live stream. When you look at across the country, whatever side of the Democratic platform you're on, whether you're Marcy Kaptur or you're that guy Zoran who just won in New York, what they've won on is having an agenda that they push forward. Tell folks what you're going to do. Don't tell them, vote for me because I'm going to be the best candidate. Why are you going to be the best candidate?
Exactly.
That's very good. And we hear that a lot when we go out.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Frank, how long have you been living in Garfield Heights?
My entire life.
Oh my God.
Born and raised there.
So you have
there.
you have a personal interest there. That's good.
Absolutely. I mean, a personal interest to not only Garfield Heights, but Northeast Ohio.
Good.
I consider Maple Heights a strong neighbor of Garfield Heights.
Yeah, they work together, really.
The two communities work together.
Mhm.
And, you know, as a council president, it's the council president's job to bring leadership to the council so they work together or attempt to bring all parties together to work together because, you know, Abraham Lincoln said a house divided cannot stand. And when you have a council and administration fighting back and forth, nothing gets done in City Hall.
Yeah.
And it creates a problem. And who's on the short end of the stick is the neighbor next door, the guy that lives down the street, the elderly lady that depends on a program that the city provides, the kids that provide going to school, the crossing guard, the school. There's so many little things that become affected that the people in the community are hurt by when members of local government argue and do not work together.
Yeah.
That's good. And we're getting ready to close in just a little bit because I don't want to go too far with our time. We got to keep people engaged. But I'm loving this conversation. And I'm
All right, let's do it
both
again.
perspectives here. Okay, definitely a little bit more mature look at things and a youthful look at things. Okay, but there is another question that is very, very important to me. What are some of the things that our residents should come to local government to obtain? Case in point, a lot of other residents, they are misinformed as to truly what they can come to a city council meeting and ask for. Of course, we know problems and everything, but here a good example is my neighbor won't take his trash can in. Is that something that can come in? Or I need mulch. What are some of the services that you would like to see also that we can provide?
If you have good communications from the council and the council president, they don't have to come to the council meeting. For
Keyword, communication, transparency.
communication, transparency, because the council meeting is the business of the council to provide the ordinances, resolutions, discuss what needs to be done within the community. It's not necessary, it's the last resort for someone who has an individual in their neighbor who's not taking care of the property. They need to go to the building department, the police department, call the councilman beforehand and try to work that out.
Yeah.
That's not really council business, but when it has to come there, that's kind of like the last resort.
Yeah.
Well, one of our goals is to be as transparent as we possibly can, even by doing podcasts like this. I want to give information back to the community. I want to make sure that they understand exactly where their tax dollars is going, what's being spent, okay, and how that affects their services in the community. I worked in another community and I noticed they had a mulch program that I just thought was excellent. I would like to get some of those services that I see in other communities involved in Maple Heights. I think that a lot of our seniors could benefit from that. There's a lot of programs out here that I have never heard the council even speak of in Maple Heights that I noticed other communities have, okay? And that's important. So transparency and communication is very, very important. Frank, one of the things that I also know, if you've been staying in Garfield all your life, you know Garfield Heights. You know what's good for Garfield Heights. You know, and you have a vision that you would love to see for Garfield Heights, correct?
That's correct.
All right.
I think anybody involved in a community
Yes.
would like the community to move forward in a positive.
That's good. That's good. Well, I want to have a closing comment, and then we're going to end this. So I'll start back with you, and then I'll let you finish up, Frank. How about that? Okay. So if you were to have a closing comment, Ethan, what would that be? And it could be on anything that comes to mind, not just what we talked about, but just things that you think are important in local government or your life or whatever. Let's do a caption on that, a close.
Yeah, I think that to your point, I think he said it really well, Frank did, that if you live in a community, you have a belief of what the community, a vision for what the community should be like. And if you have a vision, that's when you should come to your local government and talk with them and be engaged with them. And that doesn't have to be, something as big as, topics like public safety, healthcare, environmental justice, anything like that. It could be, a certain red light that's no turn on red. You want it to be a turn on red. That is a vision for an easier, city and a better government. It could be, you want to have less regulations on how your house can be painted or how it can't be painted. That's another vision for your local government. All these visions are important. We live in an ecosystem and we all feed off of each other. So one man's issue is not the other man's issue, but we all have concerns and we all have vision for a better city. I think that we can be a more effective town and in Maple Heights, Shaker Heights, if we listen to residents, if everybody's engaged, and if we cut out waste. Like I said, I think that effective governance is important. That's why I started my organization, Better Future for Cuyahoga campaign, to get more effective leaders into office. In Shaker Heights, I've heard horror stories that we're spending $20,000 on tax dollars to figure out if we should paint pickleball lines or not. That's not what taxpayers. When you think about the mother who's living. You think about the mother who's living in Shaker Heights, who's working as a nurse, like my mom did, and is working from the morning until dawn or to the afternoon. They shouldn't be spending their tax dollars on deciding whether or not we should paint pickleball lines. We should paint the pickleball lines, or you don't paint the pickleball line. We need more effective governance so that we can be a better city in all parts of Cuyahoga County, not just in the big cities like Cleveland or Parma. In Shaker, we need effective leadership. In Maple Heights, we need effective leadership. And that comes from pushing for better representation and also being more actively engaged in your community.
And I think being engaged in the community can be as simple as putting forward an idea you have. Like you said, maybe we should turn right on red at this. My involvement in government, I've seen individuals who aren't involved, they're just residents come to a meeting and say, hey, why aren't we doing this? And then the light bulb clicks in someone's head and says, you know what, that is a good idea.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can make that happen. And I've seen that happen quite a bit. So being engaged and putting forward an idea is very good for a community.
Okay.
It shows that engagement.
Now, in Maple, they call those districts where council people, and they bring back information that they receive from the residents, then they fight for them. But they also are responsible for writing legislation. That is a very important part of our council people, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so what you're talking about is actually that light bulb. That person, that council person should be taking note and then maybe going and visiting that individual to see if they can expand on that and then bring back something to the council that would support the entire community opposed to just that district, right?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying, Frank? Okay, continue.
You know, a good example is when I was a councilman in Garfield Heights, there was a lady whose child died from SID, sudden infant death syndrome.
Wow.
Nobody knew what that was at the time. She came to me and said, you know, is there something the government can do, because I don't want this to happen again, and I feel for other parents whose babies are dying. And if you don't know what sudden infant death syndrome is, it's a child who go to bed at night, just don't wake up. And the parent has no idea that there's something wrong.
Sad.
So we went to Congresswoman Mary Rose Okar,
I remember her.
and and they started a federal funding just by one person coming forward saying, what can we do? Alan Kosan, who worked for Mary Rose Okar's office, we met with her and they put together some ideas, got the ball rolling, and at a federal level, programs started coming up where they developed these monitors that you put on a child that is susceptible to SIDS. And it saved hundreds of thousands of babies from dying.
Wow.
Just because one person came
That's effective government.
That's effective.
That's
That's
effective
how
government. That's how
one
it
thing
works.
can make, one person can make a difference.
Yeah.
Caring can make a difference because
That's
you
right.
had to care to even be involved. Okay, you guys. Hey, this was good.
It was
I
great,
like
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Let's do it again.
Oh yeah, we are. And listen, watch out for the Wagner report. The Wagner report. The Wagner. Hey, he's gonna have some great guests on here. I
We're
can
gonna
tell
have
you.
some great guests.
Yes. Okay. Great. And Ethan goes to Duke University. Listen, man. Congratulations on all your successes. I look forward to what you're gonna bring to the future. Also, thank you for running my campaign.
Yeah.
We're in good shape. Hey, you guys, I'm going to say goodbye until the next time, but look out for the Frank Wagner report and vote Lawrence Lane, Council President, Maple Heights.
Thank you.
Good, I thought that was pretty